We've talked on the YouTube channel a number of times about Splinter Cell and the future of this franchise moving forward and what we're hoping to see at some point or another, which of course, guys, is a Splinter Cell title to kind of continue the legacy that is this franchise, one of the staples, of course, in gaming. And with that, guys, I wanted to go over the top 5 things that we want to see in Splinter Cell 7. And when I say we, guys, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinions here, which some of you may agree with, some of you may disagree. I would love to know either way, though, in the comment section down below what your guys' 5 things are that you want to see happen in the next Splinter Cell iteration. So let's get into it. So guys, when we talk about Splinter Cell, when we talk about this franchise, it has been rooted, of course, with Sam Fisher as the main character. And Splinter Cell 7, which is what we're calling it here on the YouTube channel, whether it's going to be called Splinter Cell 7 or something else, is most likely going to be called something else. But that being said, at number 1, I would really like Splinter Cell 7 to conclude Sam Fisher's story. Now, that does not mean, guys, by any stretch of the imagination that I want to see this be the conclusion of Splinter Cell as we know it, but I want it to be the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new chapter in the Splinter Cell universe. And I think that's important because if you go so long with one character, even though you become very attached to that one character, sometimes it's best to move on to a new character and kind of see where the story goes. Because I think it's really important that with each character that's in a franchise, it's important that we understand what happens to that character, what that story arc is, or where that character is headed and the conclusion of it. Think of Uncharted: A Thief's End. Think of Gears of War and how, of course, Marcus Phoenix, his story was kind of told with the 3 Gears of War games, and then he passes the torch on to JD Phoenix, his son, and then who passes it on to Kate Diaz in Gears 5. What I'm getting at here, guys, is that there's nothing wrong with, passing the torch on to another character. Sometimes it works really well, like I thought it did with Gears of War. Sometimes it doesn't work as well, like in Halo, where, obviously when we have Halo 5 and Master Chief is in the focal point, we saw that there can be problems there. So there's both sides to the equation, but in my opinion, we need to move on. This needs to be the conclusion. We need to see what happens with Sam Fisher, and then he needs to pass the torch on to another character. And that leads me, guys, into number 2, which is adding new characters, new enemies, new environments to Splinter Cell 7. And so I definitely want to see and have some existing characters. I want to have some new characters, though, as well. I want there to be, enemies that were, have maybe gone up against in the past, but I definitely want to have new enemies as well. And of course, you want to have a new villain in this story. You want to have, new environments that you're going to be kind of, infiltrating different places, right? Similar to think of Pandora Tomorrow and kind of the jungle-esque types of landscapes that we went around in, places like that, or even in Chaos Theory and such. I just want there to be a lot of variety here when it comes to Splinter Cell 7. And that leads me, guys, to number 3. One of the most important things about Splinter Cell, in my opinion, and I believe it's the staple of what makes this franchise so great, is the stealth element to this game, and just how rooted Splinter Cell is within the stealth genre, because that's what this game is. It's a stealth game with action elements. Well, as of late, guys, I think a lot of us can agree is that they went away from that somewhat. They went away from the stealth and they kind of focused more on action over stealth, or having action with stealth elements. And what I'd like to see here with Splinter Cell 7 is I would really like to see them go back in the direction of stealth over action. There's nothing wrong with having action. They're definitely going to need to have action in this, but there needs to be more of an emphasis on stealth. And because when series or just franchises in general in the video game industry, when they go away from what has made them so great and they start trying to do other things with it, a lot of times it doesn't work and it doesn't really resonate well with the fan base. And I think Splinter Cell is an example of that. So they need to go back to the stealth over action. And that, guys, leads me to number 4, which I alluded to earlier. Sam Fisher needs to be the guy who passes the torch on to a new character. And this kind of course, can lead us to, questions around, the, multiplayer, the co-op modes and such, where you have another character who's with you, during parts of this game. I think is going to be important with Splinter Cell 7. I think it'll be important to have that other character, whether it's an AI character or if they make it where you can, have a friend with you that's playing alongside you or someone else around the world. I think it's important that with Splinter Cell 7, we have Sam, passing the torch on to a new character, where there's some missions where we play as this new character or whatever the case might be, guys. I think it's going to be really important that we don't necessarily 100% move on from Sam Fisher, but he passes the torch on, basically stating that his job and his missions are over. And it's time for someone else to come into the fray to take care of, whatever needs done, right, at the end, when it's all said and done. So with that, guys, I think the torch has to be passed on to a new character. That leads me, guys, into number 5, which is multiplayer and co-op, which, like I said, with co-op, having, co-op modes where you can play with someone else around the world that can, kind of be that second character that's alongside you. Multiplayer modes, whether it's PvE, where you're going up against waves and waves of enemies with your friends, or you're trying to infiltrate somewhere with your friends and you're trying to, have other, side missions and such that you can, infiltrate different places, like essentially co-op missions. Or having multiplayer where, it's you versus other people, that PvP element to it. I think having more ways than one to connect with this franchise is going to be really important, and really just more so with this game as a whole. Having multiple ways that you can connect with it, I think, is going to be really important at the end of the day. And so having, multiplayer and co-op to bring you back to the franchise, or to the game at least, after you're done playing, Splinter Cell 7, as far as from the campaign perspective, is going to be huge. And also, guys, I think that this game needs to set up the rest of, the next generation of Splinter Cell games. So whether this one is going to take us, to wherever it ends up taking us, I think it needs to set up the future of Splinter Cell. And so I'm really hoping that they do that here with Splinter Cell 7. But those are the things that I really want to see, guys, in this game. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys want to see? What are the top 5 things that you are most excited about, or the things that you definitely want to see if this game gets made? Let me know. And for more Splinter Cell 7 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.